Oh yeah, I guess that's true that I got the guard codex too because it came in the Greek box.
Except that would have been the 9th edition guard codex, right? Or was that a
No,
10th?
no, it was
That
the
was
10th one.
10th.
Yeah,
It was
because
the same time Eldar
that
came
was
out.
like in January. That was this year.
Was that this year? Oh my
Yeah.
gosh, that feels like ages ago, but yeah, that was just January of this year.
I mean, it was like 8 army releases ago.
Okay, that is ages.
Which once upon a time would have been like 7 to 8 years ago if it was 8 armies.
It would have only
Hey,
been like 4 to 5 years.
4 to 5. Okay, fair enough. Fair enough. Welcome to Preferred Enemies, the Warhammer 40k podcast that is dealing with giant stompy robots again. I'm your host, Rob.
Kevin.
Dennis.
And Richard.
And yes, it is time for another knight-based codex, and this time we are looking at the Imperial Knights. We had Chaos Knights a few months ago at the end of the Year of Chaos, and so now we are going to talk about the Imperial counterparts, which actually came first, but not in 10th edition, because codexes and timelines and production cycles are weird. And we will be getting into that soon, but first I did want to take a small aside to talk about something that is not technically 40k, but is 40k adjacent, and that is the new Kill Team Tomb World box, which we talked a bit about last time. Also, when we were talking about, hey, look, they accidentally linked the Nightbringer, and kind of talking about what was what was coming with that. And so we did get a copy of the Tomb World box, and this is not going to be a full in-depth review because I don't play Kill Team. Although I will say, working on the terrain for Tomb World makes me want to play Kill Team, because I mean, we all love the boarding action terrain. Like we've played boarding action terrain, but we also have acknowledged that the boarding action terrain is a bit of a pain in the ass.
Yeah, I like the concept of it, but when it takes just as long to set up the board as it does to play the game, then
And that's one place where I will say the Tomb World terrain is a huge improvement, because unlike the system for boarding actions where you have pillar, attach wall to pillar, put cap on top of pillar, and you have to do that for every wall segment, Tomb World walls, half of them have half of a pillar like cut on the diagonal. And so you can just like connect them with other walls that have a similar cut, or they have walls that don't, and those can slot into the pillars directly. And they also have, there's like 16 or 18 half pillars in the box, so you can close off pillars, or you can make new pillars for walls that don't have pillars, but they all just slot into each other. Like there's no extra step of, now I have to seal the top or else everything's going to fall apart. And they got the variances right so that when it's primed, it all holds together pretty well. Like it does. In fact, it does get a little bit harder sometimes to get the walls to, like the walls without pillars, to slot into pillars a little bit, but it's not too bad. They hold pretty well. You can get very intricate in painting it. This is the first time I've tried painting like boarding action style terrain. And like you look at the GW standard paint job on this, and they've got like the tan columns and tan stonework laying over like the black stone underneath. And I looked at that, I'm like, that's going to take way too long. And I have like a week to work on this. So I chose not to do that. I chose just to do like the traditional black and green, like classic Necron look. And honestly, I managed to do that. I had that done from, I think, Saturday afternoon. I was taking the walls off the sprues and getting them cleaned up. Sunday, I had them primed. Monday, I airbrushed the columns and did some spot airbrushes with a brighter green on some of the light elements on the board. And then just did like a dry brush of, it's like moot green, like they're the Citadel, like bright green paint. Just a light dry brush of that over everything. And that got me like 90% there. I took some early pictures of that. No metallic details or anything, just that. And that already looked really good. And then there's a few places where you'll want to do like metallic details. Like there's 2 walls that have Necron warriors ensconced within in like various levels of regeneration. And I just dry brushed silver and then did a little bit of touch up afterwards. There's a few spots where I either did a light dry brush or even just a little dot of silver paint because there's tiny little scarabs like doing repairs on various walls. And then just like little dot of silver paint around that, and then apply a little black wash like an oil, and that, and then a little bit of gold detail just to kind of like add a little bit more visual interest. You can go really strong on the gold, which is what they do in like their sample models. I was a little bit more sparing with it, but all told, like it puts together a really nice looking kill team table. And I probably had the whole thing done in 4 days. It came together really quickly. I've played around with setting up a couple of different table setups, and yeah, it's a good set of terrain, and apparently it is very close, not identical, because it does have some of the stuff that the base boarding actions terrain doesn't have, like wall sections that have breaches in them where you can like pop out a section. But I am actually kind of tempted that when this set of terrain comes out on its own to maybe buy a second set so I could do a full boarding action style table in a Necron tomb, because I think that would be a lot of fun to play. As far as the other models in there, the Death Watch, I was surprised. There are 6. I mean, technically it's 3 very long sprues, but like 2 of them, like the longest sections were like broken off just to fit in the box properly. Mm-hmm. But it's a pair of triple sprues with all the parts and options. And, you know, they said that you get 10 models in there and you can basically make, I think there's 11 variations, because there's like a heavy weapons guy there's 3 possible weapons and only 2 heavy weapon models, but it's a ton of options. And I was honestly surprised that of the I think they covered this in one of their articles on Warhammer Community, of all the chapter logos in there, they're all like secondary chapters. There's only like a few of like the first founding chapters, and they are just on like the Phobos, like stealth armor shoulder pads. But like most of the shoulder pads are for stuff like Scythe of the Emperor or the Wolf Spear or Steel Serpents, I think, or stuff like that. It's like, you know,
nice
other factions that don't get covered a lot and don't have shoulder pads. So I think that's really cool that those are getting covered.
I think it's disappointing because Ultramarines just do not get enough coverage at times.
Hey, Kevin, I think they have little boxes that you can buy of just Ultramarine.
Yeah, they absolutely do.
Upgrades. Yeah. I mean, if you need more, I'm sure your local GW store will sell you more. Then you get all the coverage you want.
Just saying, it just seems like Ultramarines just don't get enough. Like, they never get special characters. They never get, you know, their own novels or anything. They're really the forgotten chapter.
Primaris lieutenants.
Yeah.
I will say, if you are a fan of one of the other first founding chapters that don't get their own codexes, like Iron Hands or Salamanders or like Raven Guard, you might be a bit disappointed because they don't get standard like Mark X Shadow, you know, like Tacticus shoulder pads or Gravis shoulder pads. But I will say, and I saw somebody else report this and I have to confirm it, there's more mold line on the Deathwatch sprues than I've seen in recent releases. And it looks almost like either the molds shifted ever so slightly, or I've also seen a suggestion that maybe they had to push a little bit of extra plastic in to fill in something that wasn't filling in properly. And so you ended up with just a little bit of extra flash.
Huh. Interesting.
It's only really noticeable on the legs and primarily on the knee pads, because these are all done so like the shin armor is a separate piece and they're fine. They don't have the mold line issue. It's like the legs like the main legs are positioned sideways on the sprue, so it's like top and bottom of the mold hit them, whereas like the shin armor it's just like the top of the mold. So you'll have to clean up some knees, and that's about it. It's not terrible, but it is noticeable. It's not a big deal, but if depending on how much work you want to put into it, that could be an issue, but I don't think it's that bad. I haven't looked closely at the Necron kill team, which is like a new style of Cryptek and a whole bunch of the canoptic models. There's the word I'm looking for. Yeah, so it's just like, canoptic robots. They do include a warrior sprue in there though, because they have those in there for playing like single player or co-op, like co-op against a Necron tomb, which is cool. Yes. And also there's like cards in there like, hey, if you're playing, because like some of the maps they have, they're like, okay, I mentioned those walls that have like the Necron warriors on them. They specifically say, okay, on this layout, put the wall in this location with the Necrons, because they're only on one side of the wall facing this way. And that's because in like solo play or joint play, there's a Tomb World deck, and some of the things that can happen, like you flip events from it, and some things that can happen, like, oh, hey, if that's a wall that has Necron warriors in it, spawn some Necron warriors, because they're going to just pop out of the wall and start fighting you.
That's cool.
Yeah, that is cool. And so now, and I had actually had a sprue of Necron warriors before from one of the boxed, like Barnes & Noble boxed games. They had one called Fire Team, which was basically like intro to Kill Team before they had a Kill Team starter set. And so I never put them together. I went ahead and put those together before I touched the ones from Tomb World. They're the exact same sprue. It's the Indomitus style push fit Necron warriors, which I think go together really well.
Yeah, they do.
Even as spindly as they are, I think I only had one leg bend on me a little bit, but once I got him glued on the base, he was fine. Of course, now that I have technically a Cryptek and 2 squads of Necron warriors and 2 squads of Scarabs, I'm like, oh crap, now I technically have a Necron army. Oh god,
so
what do I do now?
Are you going to paint them Dayglow yellow?
No.
On the flip,
we'll find some other obnoxious color scheme to use.
On the flip side, Rob, you said this could be like a solo or a co-op game. How would that compare to Space Hulk? Is this a new Space Hulk in a way?
Well, technically this has been available for this edition of Kill Team since Hivestorm came out. It was something they added in that. It does have rules for, like, it basically uses like very simple AI, and in the base game, it's like very generic profiles for like, hey, here's a light ranged guy, and here's a heavy ranged guy, and here's a light melee guy and a heavy melee guy. In Tomb World, they actually have what they call NPO, non-player operatives, so NPCs, cards specifically for like, hey, here's the Necron warriors, and here's like the other models that are in this set. So if you want to play against the kill team in this box minus the Cryptek, you can, and they have like their own like automatic fighting and everything. Could this be converted over to Space Hulk or something like that? I mean, you absolutely could. I know the Typhon box included an extra sprue of, I think, Termagants or Hormagaunts to use.
No, it sounds very Blackstone Fortress, which I think is what we talked about then too. But it feels very much like board game AI, which I like.
Yeah, could they use this as a springboard to relaunch something akin to Space Hulk? For Kill Team, they would need to put Terminators into Kill Team, which so far they haven't.
Probably for reasons.
Probably.
I mean, they're
for reasons.
They are putting the Nightbringer in, so
Yeah, but he's a boss.
Terminators can be bosses. Terminators are bosses.
Yeah.
Well, one question I had was obviously like the terrain and stuff you mentioned. Is it basically like the because like GW has like that different plastic they use for terrain sometimes. Is it that type of plastic, or is it like regular GW plastic? Because like the boarding action terrain plastic seems like was like the regular plastic. Like it didn't seem like it was better. Yeah,
it felt more like the regular plastic. And of course, my memories of the other terrain plastic are like the cheap plastic that they used to make their like craters and such out of, like those.
Yeah.
This wasn't that. It felt more like traditional GW plastic.
Okay. Well, because I know that like the Well, we talked about like recently the drop pods were kind of like felt like they were made of a different plastic, or I'm trying to think of what the name of it is, but that's the Space Marine like drop hab terrain.
Yeah. Yeah, the Hammerfall bunker.
No, not the bunker, the other one. It came in like the starter sets and they sold it originally. It was like the Fronteris stuff.
Oh, Fronteris terrain.
Yeah, that stuff is made of a different plastic. Like the barriers and the buildings themselves like are made of a like cheaper plastic. They're still fine because it's terrain, so it doesn't matter. But I know they were still doing that. I was just wondering if you knew this was that type of plastic or not.
I mean, gosh, I'd have to go back and look at my Fronteris because I've assembled the Fronteris terrain before. Yeah. I'd have to go back and kind of do just by feel. Because I've already removed the old sprues, so I couldn't, and I definitely don't have the old sprues for the Fronteris, so I couldn't really give you a side by side. And it's harder to tell when you're working with like the thicker pieces, like these walls, because these walls are thicker than anything you're going to use on a standard GW model. And that may be one of the reasons they do switch plastics, is because this is meant to be kind of banged around more. It doesn't have to be as delicate. I will say, I don't feel like there's any lack of detail on this terrain. There's some really neat bits. Like there's a couple of doors that are just energy fields, which are like kind of crackling energy fields. Those are really neat. The wall, again, I keep coming back to the wall sconces for the warriors, but they have each one is like in a different stage of regeneration, and there's actually a little status marker on the side of them showing how far along in regeneration they are. That's a nice little detail to have. There's lots of hieroglyphics like in wall sections, some of which is actually pretty small. That's very clear. So it's still good, crisp detail.
Yeah.
It might very well be a slightly different plastic than the figures, than the model, than the minis, but if it is, it still feels close to GW stuff. It cleaned up as easily as GW, like using a blade to cut off like the gate marks where I cut off the sprue. Like that worked. It felt the same there as GW plastic. It's just, again, they're thicker pieces, so it does feel a little different.
Okay. No, I was just wondering because I buy a lot of their terrain to like make tables and stuff. So I was just wondering if that how that stuff compared to some of the other terrain that they've been doing.
Yeah, I didn't notice it too badly on the drop pods, which I will also say the drop pods are a fantastic kit. Mm-hmm. They're one of the easiest kits I've ever seen to put together, considering how complex a drop pod is. They really did a pretty good job on making it an easy to build kit. And if it's a slightly different plastic, you won't really know it once it's painted up.
Yeah. Okay, cool.
I will say the one thing that would put me off on buying Tomb World by itself is it does have a pretty steep price point at $250. Now that's not unusual for a big set with like 2 kill teams and a full set of terrain. This isn't like the other. This would be more akin to Hivestorm. And is Hivestorm even still available on the website?
I don't think it's available on the website, but Hivestorm was $230 when it came out, and you got fewer models in it. So
yeah, this is $250. At least that is the price that I have seen, and I think that is what. Let's see, and I've heard that there's already been a big scalper issue, so it's probably sold out. Let's see, Kill Team, Tomb World, $250 sold out online, so it's already gone. So I advise you not to buy it because you can't, but
right.
But yeah, apparently there was a big scalper issue. I've already seen videos popping up about that. So $250, and if Hivestorm was $230, while this does not have the height of terrain, obviously this is meant, this is meant to be played on one level, and they even specifically mention, hey, there's no vantage points in this. Everything's played on one plane. I feel like because you get terrain that's even more customizable than what you have in Hivestorm, and the fact that you do get an extra box's worth of models with like the Necron Warriors, it's not a worse value than, other than it doesn't have the core rules or all the accessories or everything that Hivestorm had in it.
Yep.
But I feel like it's not a worse value, but I will say that unless you are either, I'd say if you are super into Kill Team and you want to have this stuff now, assuming you can get your hands on it, it would be a decent value then. But that depends on, like, do you run Kill Team events, or are you super duper into Kill Team and you want to have everything? Yeah, this is probably a good purchase. If you don't play Deathwatch and Necrons, or you don't have someone who you can split the box with, I would not probably recommend it. I would, unless you absolutely have to have like I don't think the Necrons are a big selling point for this. I think it's the Deathwatch veterans, like the new Primaris size and Deathwatch veterans, that are the big selling point here. And if you are into Deathwatch, I would wait until the Deathwatch box is available separately, because that's going to be an $80 price point most likely, or well, it'll be $80 plus whatever the 4% increase that we're getting in October is going to be. So imagine $85.
Yeah. I bet it'll be even more, because they'll probably box this up with the 11th edition Deathwatch Codex and wait to release it then.
No, they won't. But like, I would, if you play Deathwatch, I would hold off on getting this. Again, because you can't unless your store is getting a copy in. But I would probably just buy the Deathwatch Kill Team by itself once it's available. And if you're a Necron player, unless you really want to play the Geomancer Kill Team here, I probably wouldn't even bother with this box. Unless, again, if you're super into Kill Team, then maybe. But otherwise, like, the main thing you're getting here is more Necron Warriors, and you don't need more Necron Warriors.
Everyone needs more Necron Warriors.
And Necron Warriors are like $50 a box, so like, they're already cheap, way cheaper than this. The Kill Team for the Necrons will probably be about like $65 to $70. So if you really want them, I would probably hold off on this. And I'm saying this as someone who's like, yeah, this box like inspires me to want to learn to play Kill Team. And like, I've shown it to my local playing group once the embargo was over, and they're like, oh man, that looks really awesome. We would love to play Kill Team on that. So yeah, it's a really cool looking set. And I think because it's also played on one plane, it'll be easier to teach people Kill Team on this, because you don't have to deal with like all the verticality, and you know, lots of different configurations. And plus, if you're doing more narrative play, the like having the walls come alive, and also like sometimes the doors will shut back on you or teleport you around, because they do include like teleport pads in here and everything. It's like you can even like apparently like dash onto a teleport pad, teleport over to the other pad, shoot somebody, and then teleport back in your turn if you're really good.
Oh, that's
sort of like shooting through the objective markers of the bunker mission.
Kind of, yeah.
So Rob, here's a question. What type of music plays on here?
What type of music?
Yeah, you said the walls are alive with the sound of Necrons.
Oh, God.
I haven't got one in for a long time.
I could cut that, but I'm not going to, because I want you to live with your shame.
That's not shame.
I want you to live with my shame. There you go.
Okay.
Fair enough.
I'm fine with that too.
Okay. So like, in the end, I think the Kill Team Tomb World is a neat box. I think it's a very big ask if you are not already super into Kill Team.
I think it's similar to any of the other like big Kill Team boxes. It really depends on what your interest in the Kill Teams are. Like, if you play Necrons, yeah, sure. Like, this might be interesting. If you play Deathwatch and you want to get a hold of them now, sure. Like, but or if you play both, or have people who play both, it's a good deal. But yeah, I think in general, it just depends on what your interest in those specific armies are.
Right. Yeah. And if you aren't interested in these armies, yeah, I would probably hold off. It's definitely, now, knowing that Kill Team does like seasons, just like 40K does now, I don't know, like, competitively, if this is going to be kind of a required thing. And I am sure, just like we saw pop up with people doing MDF versions or 3D printed versions of the Galadark, in boarding action terrain, I imagine we will see something similar with we represent but are legally distinct from Necron iconography versions of this pop up for people to use. So that may be a cheaper option. Always, if budget is a question, use the cheaper option if you can. There's no shame in that. It's like, it's your hobby. Play it. As we have said before, it's your hobby. Play it the way you want to. And if that means, yeah, I've got to save money on this and I can't necessarily do the big purchase, then save the money. But it is a cool set. Like, I don't want to say that it's not. It is very cool. But it's a big purchase. And again, you can't get it right now. So we'll see what happens if Games Workshop addresses the scalper issue. They have before, but it tells you either they didn't produce a whole lot of these or they didn't tighten up their website. I don't think they did like the purchase queues or anything that they've done when they've had past expected huge purchases like new edition drops or things like that. But that is Kill Team, and we are not primarily a Kill Team show. We are a 40K show, and that is why we have a new codex to look at, and that is Imperial Knights.
Oh, I thought it was like Zoids or something.
No.
Codex Zotes.
Zotes. We've only got one model, and he's a beater. No.
I mean, is that appreciably different than where Imperial Knights were when they started? They had 2 models, so.
I thought they had 3.
No, it started with just the Paladin and the
Errants, yeah.
Errants,
Okay.
yeah. It started with just 2.
I thought the Armiger, but I guess the Armigers were later.
Armigers were
a lot later.
Yeah.
Wow.
As always, we will talk about fluff, then we will talk about data sheet, army rule, data sheets, and then detachments at the end. And as far as the fluff, I would say primarily reference our episode on Chaos Knights, because it's basically the same fluff except without the chaos falling to chaos part. Basically, night worlds were worlds that were settled during what they call the long march of humanity going into the stars. These were worlds that had access to the standard template construct systems, and one of the template constructs they had was making large bipedal armored suits, which kind of became tied to the leaders and nobility of these worlds, and invariably they all somehow turned into Arthurian style night houses. Like,
Divergent
apparently
evolution.
apparently that's just a thing that happens when you use these suits. You just like, well, I'm a knight now. And to the point where the suits themselves, the Knight Titans, however you want to refer to them, I've seen referred to at least a couple of times in the Codex fluff as steeds. So it is both a suit of armor and your horse. Congratulations, you just bought horse armor.
I mean, I kind of understand this though, because if I'm on forming a planet and doing my own thing and I have access to this type of technology, yes, I am better than you.
Fair.
Like, just hands down, no, I'm better than you. Sorry. I get to treat you bad because I'm better than you now.
Do you have an argument about it? I will step on you. Congratulations.
Right. Like, I might does make right. So yeah, like, I'm just better than you now.
Yeah.
Anyway, go on.
Yeah, the houses that had access to these suits, basically, they became the de facto rulers and nobility of their worlds, but they also used them to protect their populace from external threats. They would use them to duel back and forth for, vying for either for honor or for leadership. But unlike the Chaos Knights, these are all the houses of knights that signed up with either the Imperium, and they do mention that not all of these were discovered during the Great Crusade. Some of these houses do date back to obviously before the Great Crusade and were found during the Great Crusade, but they do have a sidebar about like House Morton, which was discovered after the heresy. So there are worlds that have joined the Imperium after the fact, which is why not all of them have corresponding houses in like Horus Heresy, for example, or like Legions Imperialis, things like that. Then there are also houses that signed instead with the Mechanicum and are more tightly allied to Mars, and those houses generally wear like the red and the black and white cog iconography of Mars and the Imperium, but functionally they all work the same way. I did like the description. We mentioned this during our Chaos Knights Codex review of like how they have like the control throne that you sit in, and you control the machine with your mind. They even say like you don't drive your knight. You are not a pilot. You become one with the knight, and you also hold on to the memories of like all the knights who have ridden this thing before you. But I did also like the description of this, and I'm just going to like, they sit down into their thrones, and then once they are connected to their throne, quote, each noble and their throne are transferred along mag rails or down grav cushion chutes through the bowels of the citadel until they reach the vault transcendent, where their knight suit waits dormant. Amidst gigantic servo docks and marshalling piers, they are lowered into the cockpit. They lock into place, and then the knight is activated. And it's like, oh my God, they're Voltron. Like, I've seen this segment of like the pilots sitting down and being carried via tubes to their mecha to connect, and that's Voltron. You just made Imperial Voltron.
I'm still waiting until we get like the four armigers that can connect to a knight and really form Voltron.
Exactly.
No, I want the 5 knights that can connect and make like a full size Titan.
No, that's what I'm saying. Just have the main knight's the body, and then the 4 armigers are the legs and arms.
No, I want like a Titan that is just made of like full size like Questoris Knights. Like,
oh, okay.
like I'm thinking bigger, sir.
Okay.
They do mention also a class of knights I don't think we've ever seen models for, because like they mentioned the Questoris Knights, which are like the standard Imperial Knights, and then there's Armigers, there's the Dominus Knights, which are bigger still. There's the Cerastus Knights, which you mostly see in the Horus Heresy kits, but they're also very tall and skinny. The Acastus Knights, which are just gigantic. And then they mention the Tricolus class Knights, and I don't think we've ever seen this. Which means there's a model kit they haven't made yet.
New lore drop.
Or maybe it's the size of a planet.
Plastic Warhound confirmed.
Yeah, I can't find nothing for Tricolus Knights, and DuckDuckGo just says, did you mean Tricoloma equestra, which is a form of fungus known as the man on horseback or the yellow knight? So apparently there's a fungus knight that we didn't know about.
You're saying Nurgle's getting involved.
Don't like it.
Nurgle could be involved. And yes, you've got like the knights with the different like styles of knight suits, and then you've got the squires who ride in armigers. And I mean, that's knights. I mean, like, look at medieval knights, put knights in giant robot suit instead of on horse. Imperial Knights. Giant stompy robots. The fluff is not complex here.
I mean, put capes on them and we have Escaflowne, right? Oh.
Pretty much, yeah. It's like, if you like mecha, this is possibly the army for you. If Tau style, like more Gundamish mecha are not your thing, and you want something a little bit more brutal, that's Imperial Knights are your thing. And what I will put here that, first off, always the clarification. Yes, Games Workshop did provide us with a copy of this codex to review. They also sent us a copy of the new Knights Questoris kit, which includes the Defender model, which I have not had a chance to assemble yet. But looking at the sprues, it's pretty much a standard knight kit with the addition of like the new parts for like the new guns and the new carapace option that make the Defender. So all that out of the way, I want to get out front here. I do not think knights should be an army. I do not think Chaos Knights should be an army. I do not think Imperial Knights should be an army. They warp the field around them. They warp the gaming scene.
I mean,
I agree with Imperial Knights, but Chaos Knights should totally be a thing.
I will disagree with Kevin, and I'll agree with Rob. I think when they came out, they were a neat splash, but just like when Flyers came out, Flyers were a problem until everyone had them. I like the idea of having like a free blade or whatever the Chaos equivalent is, splash
the Dreadblade, yeah.
Dreadblade. Splash into each different army because they're a cool thing to have added, but as an army just by itself, I think it unbalances the game unless they had like some required field units of infantry that they were required to take to kind of put them in line with having some battle line troops or something. But just all mechs is just a little hard for a lot of other armies to deal with, and you always see the meta shift to you always have to take anti-vehicle or some big guns to make sure you can clear those off. And if the Knights player then targets those first, well then you're in a one-sided battle again, and it's just not as much fun.
Right. And Knights, as we've seen recently, they are very difficult to balance properly because if you get the points cost wrong, they just dominate. And it's like, if you get them too cheap, they just dominate the battlefield. If they get too expensive, then those people who decide to lean into knight armies. And when I say knights should not exist in an army, this is not shade towards people who play knights. Like, if you play Chaos Knights or Imperial Knights, you know, you're, again, as we have often said, your hobby is yours, and this is not to like shame you or say you're a bad person for playing this army. You are playing an army that speaks to you and has been presented to you by Games Workshop as a viable option. End story. Like, that is your thing. Enjoy it. My argument is they shouldn't have done this in the first place, right. But we live in a world where they did, and the genie is out of the bottle, and they would do more damage at this point by banning it or getting rid of it than they would.
And they can't do what they did with flyers, because they kind of just made flyers obsolete. I don't think they can make knights obsolete. And also, this is someone, I have enough knights to run both a knights and a Chaos Knights army. I just choose not to, because the plus is I like how fast those games go, because I only have like 3 to 5 models on the board. It's really nice. And I think when I've played you with knights in the past, Rob, you're like, yeah, I liked playing against you, Dennis. I just didn't like playing against your army. And that's the feeling I've gotten from other people, is just knights aren't fun for the person playing against them.
Yeah, rarely are they. Like, rarely are they. And also, knights, just because of the nature, again, this is not, again, shade on people who play knights, just knights, by the nature of the cost of the models point wise, they do not scale down well. Like, 1,000-point game does not really work for knights, or it doesn't work for their opponents, because at 1,000 points you have very limited options in both cases. I'd say Chaos can do generally better because they can run more like all Armiger armies. And spoilers, you cannot run a full Armiger army in Imperial Knights, but you can run like all War Dogs in Chaos Knights. And so I think Chaos does better if you have the right models at 1,000 points, but you can't do it. And even then, it's still not the most fun game to play.
Well, because I'll toss this out, Rob. I like the fact that you can't in Imperial Knights, because for the longest of time, it was just, here's Imperial Knights, here's Chaos Knights. They're pretty much the same. So now I like that we're getting more differentiators between the two.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and there are definite similarities. Obviously, like, you know, the stat lines are nearly identical at this point, if not completely identical. But the abilities and how they play are different. And what you can do with them, the detachments do very different things than the Chaos Knight detachments. But we'll get into that. So starting off with the army rule. In the index, they had a rule called Code Chivalric, which they still have now. And what they have is similar to it, but has been significantly changed. So the old Code Chivalric was, hey, if you're playing Imperial Knights, you choose an oath, and there were 2 oaths available. Each oath had a quality or an ability and a deed that you had to complete. You gained the ability the whole game, and then the deed, if you succeeded at the deed, you gained 3 command points, and you were considered honored for the rest of the game, which interacted with some of the stratagems or a little bit of the enhancements. Now it's very similar, but instead of having like 1 of 2 oaths, and let's face it, everyone took Laylo the Tyrant because it let you reroll hits and wound rolls. Because that, and what was the deed? Oh, you destroyed the enemy warlord. That's not that difficult a thing to do, and I get 3 CP for doing it. Well, that's easy. That's fantastic. So now, instead, you don't pick an oath. You have a set of deeds and a set of qualities. There are 3 deeds, 3 qualities. You can choose to pick 1 deed and 1 quality, or you can roll them randomly. The deed is still the thing you are trying to accomplish. The quality is the ability you have during the game. And if you complete the deed, you still gain command points. It's just, if you have chosen your deed and quality, you gain 2 command points. If you randomly rolled them, you get the full 3 command points. So in one sense, the amount of command points you get are toned down, and you still get the honored status. But you're far more flexible in that your deed and your quality are not tied to each other. So it's not like, well, Laylo the Tyrant, well, if I pick this, I just have to kill the enemy warlord. So now you have 3 deeds. Your deeds are either at the beginning of the battle, select a character in the opponent's army. You get the deed if you complete a turn, after which that character is destroyed. So kind of the same thing, but not tied to the warlord, which actually makes it even easier to score. Or reclaim the realm, like that was Laylo the Tyrant, because they all have like little subtitles that they have. We vow to Laylo the Tyrant is kill a particular character. We swear to reclaim the realm, which was the other oath in the index, which was like if you controlled one or more objective markers in your opponent's deployment zone, which we have pointed out some missions don't allow you to do that because your opponent may not have objectives in their deployment zone. It is now reclaim the realm is deed is completed at the end of your opponent's turn if you can control more objective markers than them. So a much easier one to complete in that regard. And then we pledge to reap a great tally completed at the end of a turn if the number of destroyed enemy units is greater than the battle round number, even if those units are subsequently returned to the battlefield. And they even said, hey, if you destroy 2 enemy units in the first battle round, this does not specify they have to be destroyed in that battle round. So I'm assuming that's going to get an FAQ very quickly. Because otherwise, you could easily complete this just by like, yep, on second battle round, oh, look, we killed.
I think it's meant to be like that, where you just keep your running tally. So but you kill your 3rd unit on turn 2, you complete it.
Yeah,
that's my interpretation.
That's my interpretation. I think I just like an FAQ to clarify that is in fact the case, but that is most likely how it works.
All 3 of these seem very doable.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, none of these are terribly difficult to do. And then on the quality side, there's Martial Valor, which is the reroll 1 hit roll and reroll 1 wound roll every time you're selected to shoot or fight. There's Eager for the Challenge, which is +2 movement and +1 to advance and charge rolls, which is what Reclaim the Realm used to be, but it was only +1 movement, so it's even better than Reclaim the Realm. And then there's Legacy Unsullied, which is improve your OC by 2 and leadership by 1. And that's for all your Imperial Knights, not just your Questoris Knights. It's like anything that has Code Chivalric gets this. So on the one hand, you can build the exact same deeds you had in the index. And the only downside is you don't get as much command. Like you get 1 fewer command point for completing the deed. Which basically means Knights play no differently, other than they get a little less access to command points, but they're also, the deeds are easier to accomplish. So that's probably the trade-off there. And you could select a quality and roll a deed. There's nothing that says, like, when you determine your deed, you can pick one or roll randomly. If you want to pick a quality and randomly roll your deed, you absolutely can. And you get the bonus command point if you randomly selected either your deed or quality. So you could still take the reroll hit and wound roll and then just randomly roll a deed because they're all easy. So I think this technically gets more powerful than what the index had, which seems like a bad play. Because there is no incentive to not roll your deed, because as you said, they're all very simple.
Yeah.
Now, which quality you go with, like you do this technically at the read missions objective step, which I think means you know what your opponent's playing because you don't do it during army building.
Right.
So it's like, oh, my opponent is running an army that has a lot of high OC units. Well, I'll just take the extra OC, or maybe I just take the extra hit and wound roll and just plan on killing them. That doesn't really matter. So yeah, they made Code Chivalric somehow better, even though they randomized it. It feels like they should have toned it down. And the more I read, I'm like, I don't think they did. And then on top of that, you still have the Bondsman abilities, which is all the Questoris Knights have Bondsman abilities. And basically in your command phase, you pick an armiger within 12 inches that hasn't already been targeted with a Bondsman ability. And until the start of the command phase, the armiger gets that ability. Once upon a time, in the early days of 10th edition, the Knight, the Questoris Knight, also got that ability. And then they're like, oh, that is extremely broken because of some of the abilities. So now it only affects the Armiger. And so that is unchanged from the current iteration of the index. And then they've got the Super Heavy Walker rule, which works exactly the same as it does in the index, where you can move through engagement range with that. Like you can move over models and move through their engagement range without being engaged with them. And you can Kool-Aid Man through terrain. You just have to make a D6 roll, and on a 1, you're battle shocked. So this army is not, like, already from the army rules, this army is not going to play any different, and it might even play a little bit better, which didn't need that. It was already good. Looking at data sheets, unlike the Chaos Knight Codex, they do have the Dominus class knights split into the separate knight loadouts, even though functionally the Chaos Knight still only has those 2 loadouts as options. And also, all of the data sheets here include they have the same changes to toughness and wounds that we saw in Chaos Knights and that we saw applied to the Imperial Knight Index after Chaos Knights came out. So generally, everything was -1 toughness and plus 2 to 3 wounds. Also, OC was dropped a little bit. So like all the big knights are OC 8, the Armigers are OC 6. They also their OC drops when they are bracketed. So,
and then Rob, I'll jump back a little bit. If you're our Imperium, you can also pick up this book to get the knights to use as a free blade, where you can take 1 knight or 3 Armigers for your Imperial army.
Right. Now, remember, with that, you don't get access to Code Chivalric because that's not your army. But yes, you can splash this into any Imperium army.
And it didn't list it to just Questoris Knights. You can get one of the big boys.
Yes, you can take any Titanic Imperial Knight or up to 3 Armigers. And unlike the Chaos Knights, you only have access to 2 Armiger data sheets. They did not decide that Imperial Knights needed any more small knights, which I'm fine with.
But you said you wanted them to have more smaller things on the table.
Yes, but generally, like smaller than
small.
Like guys, little people.
These are little people. They're just little people in mech suits.
They're the smaller horses.
Yeah, they're
ponies.
Shetland ponies.
Yeah.
Well, we should be careful what we wish for, because maybe their smaller people in smaller mech suits will be Terminators, and that will be their infantry. Mm-hmm. And then I'd be sad, because I'm like, that's not what we're asking for.
No. So moving on to the data sheets, we've got the Knight Castellan. And I will say the weapons did not really change between the index and the codex. So the Knight Castellan still has the Plasma Decimator, which is still 48 range, D6 plus 3 attacks, strength 8 or 9 if you overcharge it. It still has the Volcano Lance, which is ridiculous.
Yes, that is.
Still has the Shield Breaker Missile Launcher, which has devastating wounds and anti-Titanic 4-up. So nice. Great for killing other knights. And again, this is something that similar to the weaponry that the Knight Tyrant has for Chaos Knights. Where it differs, obviously it has access to Code Chivalric. The Dominus Knights do not have Bondsman abilities. However, instead, the Knight Castellan and the Knight Valiant, the other variant of Dominus Knight, have the Ion Aegis rule, which I think they also had in the index, which is if there's an Armiger within 6 inches of them, the Armiger gets cover. So +1 armor saves if an Armiger is close to a Knight Castellan. And then the Castellan has access to the Titan Hunter rule. Every time a range attack made by this model is allocated to a monster or vehicle model, it used to be you could re-roll a damage roll of 1, which meant, hey, you hit somebody with that Shield Breaker Missile Launcher, you're not going to just do like 2 devastating wounds. You might only do 3, but you could re-roll a damage roll of 1. It is now, you can just re-roll the damage roll. So did you not like rolling a 2? You can go for a bigger roll if you want. So they made that a bit stronger, but that is primarily the only change there. And this is definitely a very different role than the Knight Tyrant had, whereas the Knight Tyrant was, you put this thing down and there's a bubble of 12 inches of no deep strike, no reinforcements around me. So like for holding a backline. And the Knight Castellan does not do that at all. Knight Castellan is something that hunts other big knights.
Yeah, between the shield breakers and the volcano lance, oh my.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely it will do the job. I don't think you see the Dominus Knights very much on the table because they are more expensive, although still really cheap for what they do. But do you take that, or do you like splash in something else, like, or a couple of like
3 or 4 more armatures?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, armatures are still too cheap for what they give you. But I will say, reading through this guy again, he might be cool to splash into just an Imperium list as I'm going to just be your anti-big thing.
Yeah.
Because the range on those weapons is stupid. So you just have to get him in a spot where he's got line of sight and he'll just wreck things.
Yeah. Yeah. And thing is, at like those shield breaker missiles at strength 12, he's still wounding most vehicles that aren't Titanic on 3s.
Yeah.
So like, now the question is, he won't do devastating wounds against, like, he'll do devastating wounds against another knight. It's only one shot at a time, but you can take 2 shield breaker missiles or 2 siege breaker cannons, which are better against infantry. So you can kind of tailor them based on what you want to deal with. But yeah, like a Knight Castellan could actually be really neat to splash into an Imperium army if you have the points for it. On the other hand, you have the Knight Valiant, which is the other build for the Dominus Knights. Also provides the same cover that the Castellan Knight does to armatures. But this one is more of a mid-range fighter because instead of the mid and close range fighter, but not a melee fighter. And I think we mentioned this when we talked about the Knight Tyrant, how like this is a bad loadout because it requires you to get close, but then once you get close, all you have are pretty weak Titanic feet.
Cut and paste.
Yeah, very cut and paste, but a very different ability. So in the Index, the Knight Valiants let you target one unit you had shot at, and of course this thing still has lots of gun on it, and force them to make a battle shock test. It no longer does that now. Now its ability is Thundershock, which is all about the harpoon that it has.
Well, the vehicle's all about the harpoon.
Yes, and the harpoon, just to be clear, is 12-inch range, D3 attacks, hits on 3s, strength 24, AP minus 6, 10 damage, blast devastating wounds. Now, each time you select a target for the Thunder Coil Harpoon, you roll a d6 for that target and a d6 for each other enemy unit within 6 inches of the target. On a 4-up, the unit being rolled for is struck by arcing energies. After resolving all this model's attacks against the target unit, each unit struck by arcing energies suffers d3 mortal wounds. So you may do mortal wounds even if you miss.
Okay, that's just funny and I like it.
It's like it either hits you or it hits the ground near you and everyone around you may take electrical damage.
I mean, it kind of reminds me of the shrapnel that Mugen Ra gives to the Dark Reapers.
Yeah, it's very similar to that.
Although of these 2 knights, I'd probably take the first one over the Valiant.
Oh yeah, the Valiant is really good at clearing out smaller stuff, although you'd think the Thunder Coil Harpoon would be fantastic against big things. And granted, if with a good set of rolls, you could completely wreck like even a Knight Castellan if you got close enough, because if you got 3 attacks and you hit with all 3 and wounded with all 3 and they failed their saves, because they would get their 5-up invulnerable against range attacks. And again, all knights pretty much have a 5-up invulnerable against ranged attacks only, because that's their ion shields. You could theoretically, if you hit everything that you need to hit and they whiff everything, you will kill a Knight Castellan in one round of shooting with the Thunder Coil Harpoon. But you do have to get really close to it, and I don't think it's going to let you get there. Otherwise, you've got the Conflagration Cannon, which is a 3d6 attack, 18-inch, strength 8, damage to flamer. So great for clearing out infantry. But yeah, the Knight Valiant, it's got some neat stuff, but I don't think it's as good as the Castellan, just generally. It's like, if I'm splashing in a Castellan, I have other things that can take care of like the masses, because that's what you don't have with the Castellan is a lot of like multi-attack shots. Like you've got a Plasma Decimator, that's about the best you've got, which is still good. It's d6 plus 3 blast attacks. So, I mean, you can still get some work done with that. But yeah, I think the Castellan's just generally the better option. But the Thundershock is fun on the Valiant. Getting into the various Questoris Knights, and this is where we do start to see Bondsman abilities kicking in. All of these, again, all the Questoris Knights have pretty much the same stat line. 10 inches of movement, 11 toughness, armor save of 3, invuln save against range attacks only of 5, 26 wounds, leadership 6, objective control 8. Pretty standard across the board. There are one or two cases. I think there's like one case where we may shift off of that, but pretty standard. The Knight Paladin is the knight that has the battle cannon and either the chainsword or the power fist. I think they're pretty much all of them can have a melee weapon can take either the chainsword or the Thunderstrike Gauntlet, which chainsword is more attacks in the sweep, but fewer attacks in the strike, slightly weaker. I mean, we're talking slightly strength 14 versus strength 20 on the strike. You're still going to get a lot of work done with the strength 14 weapon. The Thunderstrike has same number of attacks on the strike. So they both have 4 attacks on the strike. The chainsword has more on the sweep, but the Thunderstrike is generally stronger. So flavor for taste. The rapid fire battle cannon is D6 plus 3 shots with rapid fire D6 plus 3, which is ridiculous. Strength 10, AP minus 1, 3 damage, 72-inch range. Much like in the Index, their Bondsman ability is they give an Armiger lethal hits and Lance. Although they did specify that the Lance is only to their melee weapons, so which I mean is kind of goes without saying, but I'm glad they, again, clearer rules are always better. Just so somebody doesn't say, I charged you, now I have Lance on my guns. What?
That's amazing.
Now, they did used to have the rule Seasoned Noble, which said once per phase you could reroll a hit roll, a wound roll, or a saving throw made for this model, which was on top of the other rerolls of hit rolls and wound rolls you could do. Now, it's just if you attack the nearest target, you improve your AP by 1, which is a much less powerful ability. Still good, but not even close to as abusive. The Knight Errant, which is armed with a thermal cannon, which is 24-inch, 2d3 attacks, strength 12, AP minus 4, d6 damage, melt a 6. So if you can get within 12, you do a ridiculous amount of damage. And again, same options for melee, chainsword or Thunderstrike Gauntlet. Their Bondsman ability is Errant's Duty, which this is exactly the same as it was in the Index. You basically allow the Armiger to reroll advance rolls and their weapons gain assault, which is less good than you might think when we get to the detachments, because one of the detachments practically gives that as an ability to all your knights. And then aggressive assault, every time they target the closest eligible target, they add 1 to the hit roll, which means they're hitting on 2s, but only for their ranged weapons if they're attacking the closest thing, which, given that your longest range, like the range with your main gun is 24 inches, you'll probably be shooting at something relatively close, but somebody could always mess with you by pushing some chaff closer and then denying you that. Also, all of these have the option for three different carapace weapons. You've got the Iron Storm missile pod, which is an indirect fire, like strength 5, d6 plus 1 blast gun. Pretty much used only against infantry. You're probably not going to want to use that one that much. There's the Storm Spear rocket pod, which is 3 shots, strength 8, AP minus 2, d6 damage. That one's probably the one you're going to want to take. And the difference between those aesthetically is Iron Storm missile pod, whole bunch of little rockets, Storm Spear rocket pod, bigger rockets. And then there's the Twin Icarus autocannon, which is anti-fly 2-up twin linked. So that's probably the one that will get you the most work done against certain armies, because if you deal with armies where like a lot of stuff has fly, yeah, you're just wounding them on 2s.
Like battle suits or Eldar tanks.
Yep. Anything that has jump.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, your paladin wants you to shoot at the nearest thing. The Knight Errant wants you to shoot at the nearest thing. And then we get to the Gallant, which has decided to forego shooting for dual melee options. much like the equivalent in the Chaos Knights Codex, the Rampager, your melee weapons all hit on 2s in this one, and you have more attacks than you do with the either the Knight Paladin or Knight Errant.
And more movement.
And more movement. You get 2 inches more movement. Again, we see, something similar with the Knight Rampager. This is basically the Imperial Knight Rampager, or you could argue that the Knight Rampager is the Chaos Knight Gallant. You do have a bondsman ability that allows the armigers to re-roll charge rolls and re-roll hit rolls when they charge.
I have no clue why they think that would be bad if he got it too.
I can't imagine. However, they did change his non-bondsman ability, and I'm glad they did, because it used to be he was -1 to be hit in melee.
Oof.
Which seems like a bad thing to have. So instead, he does an extra 3 inches of consolidation.
Okay.
If he can end with an engagement range of 1 or more enemy models. So if he's only wants to consolidate onto an objective, he gets 3 inches, but he gets 6 inches if he can consolidate into another enemy unit. So I think that makes him a little bit more interesting and a little less abusive. The melee knight that wants to punch you in the face only being -1 to hit in melee, I don't like that. And granted, you'd have to survive the melee with him, but that means also if you are attacking with another knight, you are -1 to hit. That is no longer the case, so I think that's better. Next up, you've got the Knight Warden, who is armed with the, again, Chainsword or Thunderstrike Gauntlet, but his gun is the Gatling Cannon, which is 36-inch range, 18 attacks, strength 6, AP -2, 2 damage, which, again, same as he had in the Index. His Bondsman ability used to be if someone is attacking one of the armigers, you reduce the incoming damage by 1. It is now instead, he gives the armiger sustained hits 1 and ignores cover. Sustained hits 1 on all their attacks, so melee and ranged, and ignores cover on their ranged. And then his other ability, which is the same as it was in the Index, is Thin Their Ranks. Every time he makes a ranged attack against something that is not a monster or vehicle, the attacks have devastating wounds. So all those Gatling cannon shots have devastating wounds against non-monsters, non-vehicles. The missile pods, the Icarus autocannons, the heavy stubber he has as a chest gun, all have devastating wounds against non-monster, non-vehicle units.
I mean, I feel with him, you just take all the options that give you the most number of shots.
Yeah, that's what you do. Yeah, absolutely. That's one where maybe you do take the Iron Storm missile pod just to get the D6+1 attacks. Just yeah, like you said, to maximize number of
indirect devastating wounds.
Yeah. Then you've got the Knight Crusader, who has decided to forego all these, chain swords and punchy fists for dual guns, and he will always have the Avenger Gatling cannon. He can have either the thermal cannon or the rapid fire battle cannon, and that is the same as it was in the Index. You will always have the Avenger Gatling cannon with him, and he is unchanged from Index. His bondsman duty is add 1 to the hit roll for armigers that make a ranged attack, and his normal ability, punishing salvos. If he remains stationary, his ranged weapons all have sustained hits 1.
So the Gatling cannon, 18 shots, a sustained hit 1.
Yes.
I mean,
and the rapid fire battle cannon, which has D6+3 shots or D6+6 shots at rapid fire, which, by the way, the range on that rapid fire battle cannon is 72 inches of range. So you have rapid fire 2D6+6 shots at 36 inches, which is the same range as the Avenger Gatling cannon. So all of that would have sustained hits 1.
Yeah, that would just be, I'm going to mow stuff down.
Yep. Yeah, the Crusader is the most DACA you're going to get. Now, moving on to the Knight Defender. This is our new Questoris option. And this one is very different in that, A, it does not have the option to take any of those missile pods or Icarus autocannons. Instead, it just has a shield generator on it. It also has a 4-up invulnerable against ranged attacks instead of the 5-up. So it already has basically its ion shields rotated. It comes armed with a conversion beam obliterator, and if you remember the conversion beamers that we are seeing in the Leagues of Votann army, this does something very similar, where It has sustained hits D3, and if it is more than 18 inches away from the target, every successful hit roll of 4-up is a crit.
See, the difference I see, since this is ballistic skill 3, you still might not roll crits if you hit it.
That's true. You could theoretically roll 3s and not, but you're gonna get a lot of sustained hits out of this thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Except also in the Votan, they got rid of all of our sustained hit D3s. Makes me sad.
Yes.
So what? Knights got to keep it sad.
Yeah, Knights keep it, and that's also a Strength 12 AP -2 for damage gun that is doing sustained hits.
Yeah. I mean, you should attack 3 times, hit 5. I mean, hit more than 5 even. Probably hit like 6 or 7 with D3 sustain.
Yeah, you're going to get a fair number of shots. You could do very bad things to a lot of things with a lot of targets with that gun. Then it's also got a Plasma Executioner, which is basically a slightly weaker version of the Plasma Decimator from the Castellan. A little bit less range, less AP and damage, same strength though, strength 8 or strength 9, depending if you overcharge it. AP is either 2 or 3, damage is either 2 or 3, and both are blast.
I mean, you say weaker, but I mean, I think it fits this knight perfectly as all the main guns are 36 inches.
Yeah, no, it's
really
just
good.
weaker compared to the Castellan. It's slightly weaker, but it's a very similar profile. Your chest gun is always a phosphor blaster, which makes me think this is meant to very much be a Mechanicus knight, because phosphor blasters are a common Mechanicus weapon, and the big thing there is it ignores cover. And then they have a twin Incendine Combustor attached to the conversion beam, which is a 12-inch D6 flamer that is twin-linked and strength 6. So it's like a Sister's like Munitorum heavy flamer kind of flamer, but also twin linked. Now, this is also a good time to point out, because they're Titanic, most knights can't fire Overwatch. So you don't have to worry about getting close and them like burning you while you move.
Yeah, I'd actually forgotten that rule because we don't play knights. So when we had our little team game and I brought a knight, I looked that up. I'm like, I wanted to fire Overwatch with my Gatling cannon, and I can't.
We are very grateful that you cannot.
Yeah.
Now, as far as your bondsman ability, they stole the bondsman ability from the Warden, which is the reduce the incoming damage, which makes more sense for a defending knight. Like, this knight's role is defense, so it makes sense for this knight to have that ability. The other ability it has is Selfless Protector. Each time a ranged attack is allocated to an Imperial Knights model from your army, if that model is not fully visible to every model in the attacking unit because of this Knight Defender model, that model has the benefit of cover and a 4-up invulnerable against the attack. So this is kind of an interesting model, but it's also positioned kind of weirdly, because you want Knight Defenders in front. You want them screening your other knights. And note, it's only other knights. There is no point in splashing in a Knight Defender into your army when there are other options for knights to splash in, because that ability does nothing for the rest of your army.
And neither does the bondsman, because he's by himself.
Right. So like, if you take this, you are taking it for the guns, and I think there are better options for gun knights to take if you're going to splash in. So it's an interesting ability, but also because the Knight Defender has to be up front, that means it is most likely the knight that could end up in melee, and it has the crappy Titanic feat. I mean, Titanic feat are still strong, but it's not anywhere near the other melee options.
Number of attacks is weak.
Number of attacks is weak. The strength is good against infantry, but not great against anything else. The AP and damage aren't great. Like 2 damage is okay. I mean, you can stomp on Marines, but with AP 1, the Marines might just not get stomped on. And with only 4 attacks, like the Knight Defender is in an odd space, because it's like it wants to be up front, but up front's not the best place for it to be. And also, if you're up front, the conversion beamer is not going to get its job done, because you're going to be too close.
Yep, because you have to be outside of 18.
Yeah. So like on certain table layouts, this will do okay. Or if you're up front, it's good for targeting things in your opponent's backline, but it's a really weird choice.
See, what I see here, remember how I built that Knight or Eldar Knight where I used a bunch of Eldar parts for it?
Uh-huh.
I'd be halfway tempted to try and make the Knight Defender into like a Votan style knight because it's got the conversion beamer and all that. And
Right.
space dwarfs are tough and defendery, so
I could see it. I could see it. But yeah, it's kind of an oddball in that it has a very different set of weapon loadouts. It doesn't match anything else in the army, and its role doesn't seem to fit what it's equipped with. But it's an interesting choice.
give it another couple editions. When they introduce a couple more armigers, maybe that'll make more sense
Right.
in like 4 to 6 years.
So next up, we've got the Knight Preceptor, which actually has an image now. In the index, they didn't even have one painted. They just had generic art for it. So, hey, upgrade. The Knight Preceptor is kind of an interesting choice because it wants to hunt particular things. At the start of the battle, you select a unit from your opponent's army to be your quarry. Each time you attack the quarry, you can reroll the wound roll. If your quarry is destroyed, you select a new unit to be a quarry. And the reason I'm reading that before the bondsman ability is because the bondsman ability says the armiger who is attacking your quarry can reroll the wound roll. So he makes other armigers hurt his thing better too.
It's like, hey, come on, Timmy, we're going to go fight this thing.
Right. And then his weaponry is a las impulsor, which is a pretty good weapon. You've either got a 24-inch high-intensity blast with D6 attacks, strength 14, AP -3, 4 damage, or low intensity, which is 36 inches range, 2d6 shots, strength 7, AP -1, 2 damage. So are you going after something big or are you going after infantry? You've got modes for either of those. So you're not screwed. It's like, well, my quarry was a vehicle. Well, you're out of vehicles. Well, crap, I only have this gun that's good against vehicles. No, you've got dual mode, which is nice. And then instead of the standard stubber, they can take the stubber or a melta-gun, but they come equipped with a multi-laser by default, which is 4 shots at 36-inch range, strength 6, AP 0, 1 damage. So like it's good against all different kinds of targets. And being able to reroll the wound roll means even those like strength 6 shots might actually do something against like vehicles as well. Kind of interesting if you're I would not run the Preceptor unless I was also running armigers, like because you could do a knight list that is just all big knights. I would definitely use the Preceptor with armigers instead, just to get the most out of the mentor ability there. And then you have the one named character knight, Canis Rex, who has long been considered like a ridiculously good unit, like possibly he's still good, but he is equipped similar to, he's basically a named Knight Preceptor. He has the Las Impulsor and the Questoris Multi-Laser. He has a named Thunderstrike Gauntlet called Freedom's Hand. All his weapons have sustained hits 1. However, in the index, he used to have auto crits on 5-ups.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah, so he got a lot of sustained hits. He no longer has that. Instead, the similar ability, which was called Chainbreaker, is he's basically a chaplain. Once per battle, you pick an Imperium unit that's battle shocked within 12 inches. They are no longer battle shocked. So he is a chaplain. He is a good one to splash into an army because that will work with any Imperium army.
Well, and isn't that his lore? He goes around from battle to battle?
Yes, yeah.
Because he is a free blade?
He is a free blade, yes. And so thematically, that works very well for him. He also has the legendary free blade ability, which is once per turn, you can target him with a stratagem for 0 command points. And even if you have already targeted a different unit with that stratagem in the same phase, I imagine they'll do the reduce by 1. The balanced data slate, I think, would apply to this because almost all those abilities that made a stratagem free instead reduce the cost by 1. And also, if he splashed into an army, you're only using generic stratagems on him anyway. So it's probably for like a free reroll or free heroic intervention or something like that. Also, he is the only knight that has a pilot who can eject and do things separately.
This is why I think he's tough.
Yeah, because after Canis Rex is destroyed, you get to play a Sir Hector model. Now, Sir Hector is not very good. He's a lone op with a pistol, but he will still could land on an objective. But also, if somebody is trying to like say, well, I killed Canis Rex for points, you don't count as having killed Canis Rex until Sir Hector is also destroyed.
Right. So I've seen battle reports where Sir Hector goes and hides, and thus they don't get points for killing
a Titanic or something.
Because Sir Hector's hiding. It's like, oh gosh.
Yeah.
See, and again, you guys are complaining about not having small little units running around the table. See, there's another one.
There's one,
Your complaints are. I don't get what your complaints are. Your complaints are
has blown up.
Your complaints are invalid. No.
Also, you can definitely tell he's meant to be used as a free blade because he does not have a bondsman ability. Yeah, he is not meant to be run along with armigers. He is absolutely meant to be splashed into an army. Also, the Preceptor is the one knight that the new Defender kit does not make. Like, it makes all the, like, the Paladin, Errant, Gallant, Warden, Crusader, and Defender. It does not make the Preceptor Canis Rex. That is still the Canis Rex kit. It is its own kit. And then finally, we have the two Helverins, which also differ from every other knight in this book, because every other knight in this book, much like the Chaos Knights books, are characters. The armigers are not. You've got the Helverin, which is armed with a pair of really good autocannons, much like their War Dog equivalent. And they used to have anti-fly 2-up if they were either in their own deployment zone or near an objective. Thank goodness they lost that. Instead, they gained suppression, which we've seen on other units, where basically if they shot and they hit a unit, you select one unit they've hit, excluding monsters or vehicles, and it has to be hit with their autocannon. Until the start of the next turn, that unit is suppressed, which means they're -1 to hit. Tau Fire Warriors have the same kind of thing.
I mean, this is still a great unit because you've got 2 of the guns. Mm-hmm. That's 8 shots, strength 9. I mean, AP -1, they might make saves, but if they don't, that's 3 damage apiece. So
yeah, they're good guns. Yeah. And then you've got the Armiger Warglaive, which is armed with a Thermal Spear, which is a strength 12, AP -4, D6 Melta 4 gun. Which,
I mean, only 12 inches of range, so the Melta is only within 6.
No. 18. The Thermal Spear is 18.
Oh, Thermal Spear. Sorry, I was looking at Melta gun.
Yeah, the Melta gun is the standard Melta gun, but the Thermal Spear being strength 12, meaning it's basically the same strength as the Errant's thermal cannon, just shorter range.
Right. And 9 inches is like I'm prepping for a charge.
Right, and you're armed with a Reaper Chain Cleaver, which is strength 10. I mean, if you're coming in for a charge, this thing is ready to go. Now, fortunately, it did lose sustained hits 1 on the charge. And instead, it's kind of interesting how they changed it. It used to have sustained hits 1 on the charge. It now has +1 attack on its strike or +2 attacks on its sweep, which still means you are guaranteed. Well, yes and no. You're like with the strike, you're always getting 5 attacks instead of 4 on the charge, but you couldn't like just go bonkers and theoretically get like 6, 7, 8 attacks if you rolled really well.
Fair. If you're doing averages, this is better, but you could go crazy. Yeah. Like
on average, you are going to get a little bit more value out of your Warglaive, but you can't win at the casino with this thing. And I think that makes it better. It's still good. And there's still like things that can make like that combined with a Night Warden who like the Night Warden giving it sustained hits 1 on all its attacks anyway could still be terrifying. Because remember, there wasn't a knight that gave sustained hits 1 before. That's a new ability on the Warden because the Warden's old ability went to the Defender. So there are still some combos that can give those sustained hits.
Yeah, see, Rob, this has been bad. We've been going through the whole codex. I'm thinking, man, this sounds like it could be kind of fun to play. But I'm like, no, don't. You're working on Votan right now.
That's the thing. And again, we say that knights should not be an army, but like there's some cool things you can do with it. It's just it is an army that is inherently unbalancing for the game. But it's here, people enjoy it, so it should at least be fun. Now, fortunately, going into detachments, we only have 4 detachments, and I will say right up front, of all the detachments, there are two things across, and not two like detachment wide things necessarily. There are two things in all 4 detachments that reference the honored status that you get after completing your deed, which I think is an absolute failure to use that mechanic.
Wow, because I thought in the past honored was like, or at least no, it was in Crusade rules. Honored was a big deal. Okay.
And honored may be a big deal in Crusade still. Like, we're not primarily looking at Crusade, and again, my feelings on Crusade have been stated. So for Crusade play, honored is probably far more important. But as far as gameplay, there are two things. One is an enhancement, and one is a detachment rule. But it's only and it's okay, but it's not a big thing. Also, I would like to point out that the old Noble Lance, the Index detachment, does not have an equivalent, which I think I'm fine with, because the Noble Lance was all your knights have Feel No Pain 6 up. If you're honored, they have 5 up. That is gone. That should not have been a thing. And also, there's of the stratagems, there's 2 in the first detachment that are similar, but that's about it. That's about as far as it goes. So with the 4 detachments in the book, we start off with the Valor Strike Lance. Every time your Imperial Knights unit advances, you can reroll the advance roll, and every time an Imperial Knights unit from your army advances, until the end of the turn, ranged weapons equipped by Imperial Knights models from your army have the assault ability. So if one knight advances, everyone gets assault.
I mean, I like this because I like the fact that I could have my Melta Armigers running around with assault.
Right.
Sounds wonderful.
But as I pointed out with the data sheets, it was the Knight Errant gives has the Bondsman ability of when a model is affected by this ability, you can reroll advance rolls for that model, and ranged weapons equipped by that model have assault. You just take this detachment, and now you don't need to take a Knight Errant because all your Armigers already do that.
I'll take one of the big Titanic Dominus ones that can sit in a corner and blow things away from 72 inches.
There you go.
Oh, wait, those guns would be assault too.
Yes, they would.
Mm-hmm.
That also means the Thunderstrike Harpoon would be assault, so you could get even closer to.
Even
and
better.
Die. And then if you don't kill it, you die. Okay.
Yeah, this is also that is also true. You've got 4 enhancements. All of these are bearer of something. These are all Imperial Knights models only. I don't think any of them are limited. Yeah, none of them are limited by type. And again, remember, all your knights outside of Armigers are characters, so any knight can take these. So you've got Bearer of the Iron Chalice. At the end of your movement phase, select another knight model that's within 12 inches and visible to the bearer. They regain D3 lost wounds, or if you're honored, the one enhancement that mentions honored, you just regain 3 lost wounds.
I mean, regaining wounds is always good.
Regaining wounds, and that's the end of every movement phase. It's not a once per game. But it has to be another Imperial Knight. This one specifically will not affect the bearer.
Right. I mean, you kind of make it's an Iron Master, or I guess a Tech Marine.
Yeah,
because it has to be within 12. So you're
right. Yeah. So
come over here and I'll try and fix you mid-battle.
Also, this detachment stratagems wants you to keep knights together. Like, it wants to keep them close up, and we'll see that in the stratagems. You've got Bearer of the Evanescent Ion. You select another Imperial Knight model from your army within 12 inches is visible. They get stealth.
Why do I get the theme that these are like knight bondsman abilities for knights?
Kind of, yeah. Yeah.
Like, I've got an ability, but it doesn't work on me, but it'll work on you if you're close.
Right. Bearer of the Judicant's Helm. Select a knight within 12 inches invisible. All their weapons get ignore cover. And then Bearer of the Lancer Sigil, select another knight within 12 inches invisible. They get to reroll charge rolls.
Ooh, I like that.
Yeah. So this definitely wants you to keep, have 3 guys with enhancements and have them all close together so they can, trade off abilities.
Yeah, but that doesn't get you board coverage, though.
No, it does not. Does not. And the stratagems here don't necessarily give you board coverage either. So you've got run them through. You select up to 3 Imperial Knights that charged, that have not been selected to fight phase, and are each within 9 inches horizontally of the same point in the battlefield. They all gain Lance.
That's not really needed, though.
They all have to be close together, though. post charge. That one's going to be hard to pull off. But it's up to 3 knights.
Right. You can still pick one.
You can still pick one because it'll be within 9 inches of itself, of the same point. But to really get the most value out of it, you want to keep them kind of clustered together.
I mean, they could at least be 18 inches apart.
Yeah.
Or at most 18 inches apart.
Yeah, most 18 inches. Then you've got Thunder Stomp, which in the index used to just give all your melee weapons devastating wounds. That is a bad thing for knights to have. So instead, they changed it to you select a knight's model to fight, and their armored feat weapons get 8 attacks. Their titanic feat weapons get 12 attacks, which titanic feat are on the knight, are on all your big knights. Armored feat are on your armigers. And the AP improves by 1. So you get a lot more attacks, which like triple the number of attacks. So it's better for those knights that don't have melee weapons, but it also means it can't be abused by the knights that do have melee weapons and don't need to gain devastating wounds.
So this is what you use the defender for. He just stomps on things.
Yeah, pretty much, yeah. Full tilt, select up to 3 knight models that haven't been moved yet, and they're within 9 inches of the same point in the battlefield. They all add 2 inches to their move characteristic and add 2 to their advance rolls.
Oh, that's really handy.
That one's really... And that's where they start off. So you could still get board control because they just have to be clustered up early. And then they could spread out after that. Vow of Retribution in your shooting phase. Select up to 3 knights. Again, haven't been selected to shoot yet. Within 9 inches of each other. They get lethal hits.
Not really needed on a knight, but sure.
No, not really. Tactical Foil. In your movement phase, after an opponent moves within 9 inches of one of your knights, you can make him move of up to d6 inches. And then Rotate Ion Shields is the classic in your shooting phase, raise your invuln save to 4 up. And that's the only time a detachment will have a Rotate Ion Shields ability.
Yay.
Which is fine.
Yeah.
So this is just a good all-around detachment, and it doesn't specify on those strats that they have to only be Questoris Knights or non-Armiger Knights. So you could have like 3 Armigers get the benefit of Run Them Through or Full Tilt. Or
And you do want to have the Armigers close by your bigger knights. So
right, so they can get the Bondsman abilities. So yeah, this is just a good all-around generic knight detachment. Gate Warden Lance. This one's weird. This one's weird. Just because of how the rule is defined here. At the start of the first battle round, select 2 objective markers on the battlefield to be your foundations. When you draw a line from any part of your foundation to the other, if a part of a model's base or any part of a model's hull for a model without a base crosses that line, the model's unit is said to be on your defensive line.
Okay, so make a line, stand on it. Got it.
Make a line, stand on it. Yeah, while an Imperial's Knight's unit from your army is on your defensive line, you have the following ability. Every time you attack, you ignore all modifiers to the hit roll, and your weapons have sustained hits 1.
That's good.
And if one of your foundations ever goes away because of a rule, like a mission rule where like an objective drops away, you just pick a new foundation and draw a new line.
It's nice that this is on 2 objective markers, because then that way those are the 2 objectives you're going to focus on, because you can still be scoring on that and on your defensive line.
Yes. And you don't have to control the objectives to get the benefit too. So if an opponent takes one of your objectives, you still have the same line.
Yeah, but I want to control them for the points.
Oh, you absolutely do. You do. I'm just saying, if for some reason you lose an objective, or if it's at the beginning of the game, you just don't have the objective yet, you still have it. You still have the line. The tricky part is you have to be standing on the line. So this is like the opposite of wide board control. You have to be on one line to get the benefit.
The 2 farthest away points, select them, and then you've got a really long line. But yeah, it is kind of limiting. But that's why I say if you could hold 2 points in the middle and your point at home, that should be enough to keep the game in your favor.
Yeah, but it does lock you into a particular place, and the enhancements, all tie into that. So like Acquisitor at Arms. If you're on your defensive line and there are no enemy units on your defensive line, remember, if they cross your defensive line, they're no longer on it.
Right. But
then you add your OC to each model affected by your bondsman ability. So you're adding 8 OC to an armature.
I think that's overkill.
But your opponent can take that away from you by being on your defensive line.
Right. So no, I don't like it.
Purgation's Hand. Every time the bearer makes a melee attack, if you are on your defensive line, reroll hits and wound rolls of 1. But you have to be fighting in melee on your defensive line. So when someone pretty much comes to you.
Yeah, it comes to the point that I'm guarding, then I'm going to rush at them and crush them with Titanic Feet or something.
Augury Halo. Each time the bearer makes a ranged attack, if you're on your defensive line, you have ignore cover. And then Vengeful Tread, the one that I think you doesn't care about your defensive line. You tank shock for 0 once per turn.
This one, take this one. This
That
one's
one
amazing.
that is like a must take in this detachment. And then your strats, drive them out. You select Imperial Knight unit to shoot or fight. If the target's on your defensive line, you crit on 5s. Lancebreaker. Every time somebody targets your unit, if you are on your defensive line, the whole, like, if the strength is higher than your toughness, subtract 1 from the wound roll. Steadfast Superiority. In the fight phase, if you are within engagement range of 1 or more enemy units and you are on your defensive line, you can reroll hits. You're detecting a theme here. Everything wants you to be on your defensive line. Marshal the defense. Up to 2 Imperial Knights from your army get 3 inches of movement, I guess, so they can get to the defensive line. Titanic Bombardment. In your shooting phase, if you are stationary and on your defensive line, you get sustained hits 2 on your ranged weapons. And then Fortress of Intimidation. If your opponent wants to charge you and one of your Titanic Knights is on the defensive line and they want to charge that Titanic line, they must make a battle shock test first, subtracting 1.
Interesting.
It's like, thematically, this is a neat idea for detachment. Gameplay wise, I think it locks you down just too much.
I am undecided on how I feel about it.
Because I think if the strats were one of those cases where you always got a benefit, but it was better
Okay.
on your defensive line, I think that would be better gameplay wise. So, like, you could push past your defensive line and still get some benefit, but if you ever got pushed back or if you're holding on to your defensive line, you get stronger. That would be better gameplay wise. I think this just forces you into a weird position gameplay wise. This is something I think you could master, but you've got to be really good at figuring out the angles. Now, I will say, for competitive players where you have missions that will always have the same objective layouts, I know there's going to be somebody who will come out with, like, this is the optimal defensive line to pick.
Well, and also with those, you've got the infinitely blocking line of sight acrylic rectangles.
Right.
And so you can easily kind of fill the gaps or put hiding things to where you'll have cover. You can shoot out from beside them and whatnot. So it might work out well in those type of situations where you can, like, keep your back line kind of secure and then just move up, take the 2 corners of your defensive line and then just pulverize everyone that goes to the middle.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, pretty much. You are going to be in tough spots if somebody has a lot of deep strike shenanigans and can get behind you.
No, control the back line. That's why you got to control it.
Yeah.
If they deep strike, you shoot them.
Yeah. It's like, I will say, as a detachment, this plays like nothing else in the game, I don't think. I think this is kind of unique. I don't think we've had any other detachments that have done something like this in any of the other armies. I mean, there's a lot of detachments part of me thinks I'm drawing a blank and that there is one, but this plays very differently.
The closest I can think is some of the ones where you have a zone of control, but stratagem of those aren't always tied to the zone of control. This is the only one that seems very limited to, here's your area. Guard it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I don't know how I feel about this one. Like, this one, it's interesting. Is it good? It could be, but it does kind of lock you into playing one line in the game, literally.
Is it a line in the sand?
Yes, it very well could be. Next up, we've got the Questoris Companions, which is kind of similar in what kind of loadout I think it kind of wants you to take to the Lords of Dread detachment, which was the Chaos Knights, take all big knights, because that one was all about Chaos Knights characters. In this one, like a lot of the strats are all about Imperial Knight Titanic models. So this is like the all the big knights.
It kind of reminds me of Custodes all character model detachment too, where Custodes have a once per game ability that detachment has a command point you can spend or stratagem that lets you use that a second time. And all the enhancements here are also once per battle things.
Yes. Now, this detachment is also like, why deal with just having one deed and one quality when I could eventually have all of them? So the rules here, Heroes of Legend, at the start of your turn, if you have completed the deed, if you have fulfilled your oath, you get to determine an additional oath that you generate the same way. And you could either do it randomly or you select them. And you can't double up on something. If it's a deed or a quality you've already got, you pick a different one. If you couldn't select any new ones because you've run out of options, you don't select an additional oath. So you can have 3 different oaths per game. But the oaths all continue carrying over. So eventually you will get all the abilities. And whenever an additional oath is completed, instead of getting like 2 or 3 command points, you just get 1. Regardless of how you selected it, which at least there's that. They didn't completely blow out the number of command points you could get. And then, yes, as you pointed out, your enhancements all are basically one-off uses, but they reset every time you fulfill an oath. So basically, all of these could theoretically have 3 uses or 4 uses per game. 4 uses per game. Because you'd have your initial use, then the time you finish your first oath, your second oath, your third oath. So yeah, 4 uses.
I mean, this one definitely sounds interesting.
Yeah. So you've got Herald of Triumph. When the bearer ends a charge move, you can use the enhancement. If it does, it's expended. Then each enemy unit within engagement range of the bearer must take a battle shock test at -1, which would just hurt Dennis because he's bad at those.
True. And also, if you're battle shocked, you can't interrupt.
Also true. And you can't hold an objective either. Although it would go away by your command, so it might not matter. Wormslayer Divination in your shooting phase. When the bearer selected shoot, you can use the enhancement. It's expended. And then if you target a unit that can fly, you can reroll hit rolls. It's okay. It's kind of limited in scope. There are some armies it will do nothing against. Pennant of Silvered Fury. When you're selected to fight, you can use the enhancement and expend it. And then your melee weapons get sustained hits too. Yes. Put that on a Gallant and terrify everyone.
Yeah, it's okay if it could be any. I would love to see sustained hit 2 on that Gatling.
Yeah, but it is only melee.
I know, that's what brings it down a little bit in my mind.
Honestly, though, like I said, considering that the Gallant has 18 attacks on it Reaper Chainsword Sweep with lethal hits or devastating wounds with the strike. Okay. Yeah, it's like you've got enough attacks to make that matter, to make that sustained hits 2 really, really good.
That is true.
And then Crushing Condemnation. When the bear is selected to fight, after resolving its attack, if 1 or more enemy units were destroyed, then you can expend the enhancement, select an enemy unit not within engagement range of any enemy units from your army within 12 inches and visible to the bearer, not within engagement range of any units from your army and within 12 inches that you can see. Roll 66 for each 4 up the enemy suffers a mortal wound. So you kill something in melee and then point at somebody else within 12 inches and say, die. And they start taking damage.
Is that what happens, or is this you kill something in melee and then pick up and throw the wreckage?
The fluff is you pick it up and throw it. So
yeah, also
cool.
I mean, I still remember like breaking a Thunderhawk in half and throwing it at it.
Yes, yeah.
So see, that rule came back, sort of.
It did come back. All of your stratagems care about Titanic Knights. So you've got Courageous Stand, which when one of your knights is attacked, they can get Feel No Pain 6 up. Titanic Duel. When you target a monster, Titanic or Walker unit, add 1 to the hit roll and 1 to the wound roll, shooting or fighting.
That. I like that one.
Well, that one's really good. Moment of Glory. When one of your Titanic Knights consolidates, they can consolidate an additional 3 inches, provided you can end that move with an engagement range of 1 or more enemy units, which theoretically would stack with the Gallant.
Oh, gosh.
To get a 9-inch consolidation into another unit.
Oh gosh.
The hero's tread, and your end of your command phase, select an Imperial Titanic Knight within range of an objective marker you control. You lock it in at OC5 unless your OC would be higher. And it stickies at, so it's the same kind of thing we saw in the codex, the Chaos Knights codex. You lock it in at whatever the OC of the knight is.
So sticky at 5 as opposed to sticky at 0.
Which is still a really good stratagem.
Yes.
Unstoppable Warrior. This one actually costs 2 CP. After one of your Titanic Knights falls back, they can shoot and charge.
Yeah, that is I love fall back and shoot and charge. It makes sense that this is 2 because Titanic is
yeah, that's very powerful. And then driven by the past in your charge phase, you can advance and charge with one of your Titanic Knights. So these are all just really generally good strats, other than no, I can't think of any of them that are bad here, other than maybe the Feel No Pain 6-up, and that's still okay.
The only complaint I have against this is probably because it was designed this way. You're going to lean into the big knights, and armatures are still, I guess, the bread and butter of knight play. So leaning into the big knights, I don't know how the armatures would play into that.
They don't in this. I mean, you'd still have your bondsman abilities, so you can still buff up your armatures. So it's like the armatures don't get anything from the detachment, but they're still not necessarily bad choices.
Yeah, but instead of having like 2 knights and like 7 or 8 armatures, it would be probably more like you'd want 3 or 4 knights and only
like a couple of armatures.
5 or 6 armatures. I guess it's still enough, probably.
Yeah, you'd still be fine. But this one definitely wants you to take as many big knights as you can. And then speaking of armatures, you have the Spearhead at Arms, which is the armature detachment. Armatures do get battle line in this. Every time a model from your army uses its bondsman ability, if no other model from your army has used that bondsman ability this turn, so you cannot double them up with this. Instead of selecting 1 armature at 12 inches, you select 3 armatures at 12 inches. And if you are honored, this is the only detachment rule that cares about honored, it's a 15-inch range.
So this one really is 2 or 3 big knight with all the armatures, because each big knight can have up to 3 armatures close by.
Yeah. So this is the one you want to max out on armatures as much as you can. But unlike the War Dog detachment, armatures do not become characters in this. They can't take any upgrades. So, they don't take any enhancements. So you still have to run at least probably 2, maybe 3 big knights.
Yeah, but with them battle line, that you can actually run enough.
You can run enough. Yeah. So, yeah. And I think that's one of the places where I do like this over the Chaos Knights one, just because, as we pointed out, Chaos Knights, there are so many different kinds of War Dogs. It doesn't matter that they're battle line or not, other than for with mission rules care about it. Whereas this, you need them to be battle line to take them in the numbers that will make them work.
Right, because you'd only have 6 normally, and so this would allow you to take 12.
Yeah, because armatures still come in units of 1. They don't pair up. So your enhancements, and again, because this is a case where you may not be able to take a full 3 enhancements. You may only have 1 or 2 big knights, depending on the game size. Mentor's Pride, Imperial Knights only, so all of these are only for the big knights. While 2 or more armatures are under the effect of the bearer's bondsman ability, each time those armatures attack, they can reroll hits of 1. That's very solid. Fables of Nightmare, while 2 or more armatures are under the effects of the bondsman ability, their melee weapons have precision.
That's kind of cool.
Tales of Heroism, while 2 or more armatures are under the effect of the bearer's bondsman ability, anytime they make a melee attack, they can ignore modifiers to hit or wound. And Martial Tuition, while 2 or more armatures are under the effect of the bearer's bondsman ability, you can target one of those armatures with counteroffensives that can interrupt combat at for 0 command points.
That's super useful.
Yeah, that one could be real good. And then your strats. Virtue of Courage. At the start of the fight phase, choose either an armature or a Titanic Knight and 1 or more friendly armatures affected by its bondsman ability. So if you have... So either 1 alone armature or up to the 3 that are under a bondsman ability. Anytime one of those armature models makes an attack that targets you pick an enemy unit, you add 1 to the hit roll for all of the armatures affected.
So the Titanic Knight is just there to be the buff linker, but doesn't get the buff.
Correct. So moving on, Exemplar's Wisdom. In the shooting phase, just after one of your Titanic Knights is shot, you select the Titanic Knight and any of the one or more friendly armigers under its bondsman ability. Select an enemy unit hit by one of the big knight's attacks. Your armigers improve their AP against it by 1 when they attack it in your shooting phase. So Mantle of the Mentor in your shooting phase, select either an armiger or again Titanic Knight and armigers underneath it, underneath its bondsman ability. The armigers can shoot after falling back.
Oh, that's nice.
Thin their ranks, again, armiger or Titanic Knight and bondsman armigers. Those armigers get rapid fire 1 in the shooting phase. And these are all at the start of your shooting phase. So you do technically have to declare, like Mantle the Mentor and Thin their ranks, you have to declare at the top of the shooting phase, not partway through.
Okay, one step on that rapid fire one. I'm scrolling way down for your shooty armiger. I forgot their name.
The Helverin.
That's a 48-inch normal range, so rapid fire would be within 24.
Yes.
So that's 24 that it would get, like, go up from 4 attacks with each gun to 5 attacks?
Mm-hmm. And you could affect up to 3 of them if you had 3 Helverins tied to the same bondsman ability.
And those are good guns, so that's kind of scary.
Yeah. Let duty be your shield. Select an armiger model that was the target of shooting attack. Decrease the AP of the incoming attack by 1, which solid, good. And then Squires of the Hunt, again, select in the end of your opponent's fight phase, select either one armiger or again, 1 or more armigers under a Titanic bondsman ability. For each of your armiger models that is within 9 inches of 1 or more battlefield edges and not in engagement range, put them into strategic reserves.
Okay, that's nice.
Yeah. So I like the fact that the strats here do not like if you lose your big knights, you can still use these strats. Like your army will lose a lot of power because you won't have those bondsman abilities to buff you up, but at least the strats don't stop working. All of them will at least always target one armiger, other than Exemplar's Wisdom, because that requires a Titanic Knight to have shot someone.
Yeah, I don't know which one I kind of like this armiger one because of the fallbacks and the redeploys, but you are going to have to, I don't know, have some Titanic Knight help in the beginning because you only have, I guess, 12 little guys. But I also like the heroic one with all the Quistar's companions because that's just pretty cool too. And I like the one where you get assault. I mean, I like these, maybe except for the stand on 2 points.
Yeah, that one I still like. The Gate Warden Lance, I don't like. It's so weird that. And it does, like I said, gameplay wise, it locks you into one place, which is generally not where you want to be in most games. I mean, it's like I'm putting myself in jail to get bonuses.
No, you're defending the jail.
Well, but it's like, yeah, of these, I'd say the Valor Strike Lance is just the good all around. This will work with anything. The Questor's Companions do seem like a lot of fun, and you could end up with some really ridiculously powerful knights once you get all the qualities unlocked. Spearheaded arms, and again, I also like, just like we did with the Chaos Knights, these all play differently. They do encourage different builds. And then the Gate Warden Lance is just weird. Like it doesn't quite fit in with anything else, and it's unusual. But it's good to have like a weird, unusual detachment from time to time.
And it plays differently.
It plays very differently. I want to, when I say like, I don't know how this works, again, I'm like, somebody will figure this out. Somebody will make this work. And we'll look at it's like, oh, well, we should have been seeing that the whole time. And then there's the Grotmus detachment, and it is not affected by any of the changes to this army. Like, it wasn't that great before. Which is just it wants you to take some Mechanicus units and keep them close to your Imperial Knights. It doesn't key off of their deeds, or it doesn't key off of the honored ability. Like it doesn't really touch this. Like nothing in this in the codex changes how this one plays. This one doesn't change anything up. Like it doesn't break anything, but neither does it get any better. I think the other detachments are going to be more interesting to play. It's nice to have the variety of the Gramus detachment, but it is neither made act, better or worse by anything in this book. In the end, looking at this, I don't know how I feel about the army rule being made technically better than the index rule.
It's fine. What could go wrong?
Yeah. I do like the detachments. I feel like the detachments are more balanced than the noble lance, because we didn't need a whole bunch of knights that always have feel no pain 6 up or 5 up. I do like the way, other than the Gate Warden lance, which I would love to see what people do with it. I like how all these play. I do think the lowering toughness and the bracketing, especially I don't think this is as big a deal with armigers as it is for war dogs, because war dogs were like the Chaos Knight build for a long time, and them bracketing and losing OC, was a bigger thing for them. But I'm glad that Helverins play the same way, so at least if you know how to play against a knight army, you kind of know what to expect stat line wise. So I do still think this is I think it's an easier army to play into. The big challenge is going to be, will the points changes, which when they did the points update, all the standard big knights, like not the biggest knights, like the Knight Castle and Knight Valiant only went up by 15 points, but that put them over 400. All the smaller knights went. What's that?
Remember when those two knights were around 700 points?
Oh yeah, back in the day. Now you have to get into like the Acastus Knights to get anything that big.
Or the Orion Flyers over 700.
But the Questoris Knights are all primarily in the 375 to just shy of 400 point range. So you can fit 5 big knights onto the table and still have some points for enhancements. Otherwise, yeah, you're looking at, and your armigers are both 140 points. So basically, in exchange for, it's close to one big knight is worth just shy of 3 smaller knights, of 3 armigers. So you've got some flexibility in armory building, but I think as long as they can cap it off at 2,000 points, no more than 5 big knights, hopefully that, because I think what was happening was people were squeezing in a 6th big knight or 4 or 5 big knights and armigers into army lists. And I think as long as they can control the points value on this and make sure that you can play around knights, there's a way to chip away at their OC and things like that, I think this will be an okay army to play against. It's still not great. It still requires you to run know that you will run into armies that are all vehicles.
And so at the same time, I think in the more recent codexes, we've seen more granting of lethal hits and more anti-vehicle stuff in there. So maybe they've recognized this is a trend and they'll give other armies more ways to deal with that. And that might make knights less of a hurdle to get over.
Right. So I do think that overall it is more balanced than the index. I think looking at it, they got rid of a couple of the abilities that just seemed particularly egregious, like the Gallant being -1 to hit, or the Knight Paladin all having a free reroll on a hit to wound or armor saves. Those kinds of things, those needed to go away. Those were too powerful with everything else stacked on top of this. I think this is at a better place. I think Canis Rex no longer critting on 5s is definitely an improvement.
Yeah, it's still just hard because all the other models that air quote come back, you get counted for killing it the first time.
Yeah.
And this is the only model I can tell of in the game where you don't get credit until you kill the pilot after you've already killed the robot, which is the harder one.
Right.
Which means the pilot, especially if you're playing against another knights, can go hide inside a building. Ha, you can't get to me. So,
yeah, it's one of those things, and again, I think one of the benefits is you may very well see Canis Rex in knight armies, but I think because he's like a named character and can't take any, he's an epic hero, he can't take any of the enhancements, stuff like that. I think there's less incentive to take him inside the knight armies, although again, for just pure competitive gameplay. But of course, if you're taking Canis Rex in a knight army, you still have like several other Titanic targets for them to go after.
Yes.
So it's not quite so bad there. But yeah, overall, I feel like this is a better knight codex than we got from the index. It feels, I think, better for non-knight players, and I feel like it has more options for knight players, which is kind of what we want from this. So I feel okay about it. And I feel like it's an interesting companion to the Chaos Knights book in that even the detachments that are similar, like the Traitorous Lance is kind of their equivalent of the Valor Strike Lance, but they do very different things because the Traitorous Lance is all about leaning into your dread abilities. The Lords of Dread, which is their big knight detachment, is very different than the Questor's Companions, but they both still have the objective that lets you make something sticky at 5, so they play it a little bit similarly there. The War Dog versus Armiger detachments could not be more different, because one is wants all War Dogs all the time, and the other is, no, you need to have the big knights to really make this thing tick. I like that they play differently. They are not just mirror images of each other, but they are kind of like funhouse mirror versions of each other, which I like. So I think the Imperial Knights Codex is decent. I don't hate it. Even though I think the army shouldn't have been made an army, I like this version of it. And I think it's funny that, Dennis, you're like, ooh, but this sounds fun and I could play this.
I mean, I still am thinking that, but I'm telling myself I've got to prep my Votann stuff for the grand narrative. So I think the next 3 months, and at least until November, I need to focus on Votann. So that's going to be my saving grace for not picking up another codex.
Yeah, this is a project for later. This is a one day thing, kind of like my Trader Guard.
That's
hobby
how
focus is overrated.
That's how I started Knights in the first place. There was the giant box that had like 2 or 3 knights in it, or the Renegade box was that 2 or 3.
It had 2, like Renegades had 2.
Yeah. Okay, and I found one like a couple years after, like on a clearance sale, and so I picked it up for like $100, and so then I sat on that for a while, and then finally started playing Knights when I made the Eldar Knight, and yeah. And then I put them on the shelf, so we'll see what gets them off the shelf, if anything.
Yeah, I still have a Renegade box sitting over here on my shelf that I haven't touched yet.
I mean, you could probably get good money selling that if you needed to. Yeah. Makes me wonder, eBay, what? eBay, 40K Renegade box. I'm seeing $360 to $400, sir. Yeah. Here's one for 8. Someone's selling for 800.
I mean, but you could just buy 2 knights for cheaper than that.
Yeah, it's like sell it for 400 and then pocket the money and buy 2. Well, okay, to be fair, you would be giving up the one piece of Mechanicus train that they don't have rules for anymore. So, alas.
Darn.
But yeah, that is our review of Imperial Knights. More positive, coming out of this more positive than I expected after reading through it. So yeah, that's good. That's good. So we'll be back in a couple of weeks with a new topic. But until then, from all of us here at Preferred Enemies, I'm your host, Rob.
Kevin.
Dennis.
And Richard.
Good night, good gaming, and good job, GW, on making Stompy Robots not feel so bad.